Hello and welcome to Planet NOLA. I'm your host, Mary Jacobs. And before I introduce our guests, I have to give a few disclaimers for the first time ever. The AC is out in our studio where we record. So we've got a swamp cooler going, which is just two fans in front of an ice chest full of ice. So you might hear it. And I'm not sorry. It's so hot. We're probably going to drink some water throughout this thing. Another disclaimer, an exciting thing is that if you're watching on YouTube, we flipped where we record. So we're just recording on the opposite wall. We're in the same place. Don't worry. And yeah, I think that's all my disclaimers. I'm going to introduce our guest, guys. I am like so excited because this person is I think you're like the first guest I've had that I'm just a fan of you. Like we don't really know each other, you know? Sweet. And so it kind of feels like, I've made it. I'm like, this is a person that isn't doing me a favor, you know? Like
you're going a lot farther, don't worry.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. But so it means a lot that you're here. All right. Some of you might know this person as Rusty Lazer, local DJ, fame, and some of you might know him as Jay Pennington of New Orleans Airlift, Music Box Village, former manager of stars such as Big Freedia, Nikki DeBee. I feel like you have to recognize at least one of those buzzwords I just said, which is why it's such a big deal you're here. So thank you for being here.
Thank you.
I'm so really excited. Nice.
Yeah.
And you're a fan of the podcast.
I am. Straight up. From the day one, I've been impressed with all of them. I'm a New Orleans lover.
Yeah.
So, I want to just soak it all up.
Man, that's how I feel. I'm like, it is like a little bit, it's so cheesy to say this, but it feels like a love letter.
Yeah.
I'm like, I love this place. I love these people.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of other people that feel that way.
Yeah. There's two kinds of letters people always want to write about New Orleans, like love letters to New Orleans, and then the Dear John, I'm leaving.
Oh, my God. You were beautiful. I fell in love with you the moment I came, but my car got broken into 4 times in 1 week. And now I have to move away.
Yeah. I'll take the Dear John. I mean, I love
the
you
love
letters.
New Orleans.
Yeah, those are the ones.
I remember after Katrina that we had like an assignment in school where it was like, write your love letter to New Orleans, and it was teenagers who are heartbroken.
Oh.
I wish I had mine.
I'm about to cry just hearing it.
It was just so angsty and so heartbreaking.
Yeah,
anyway, well, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, really happy.
It's truly an honor. I don't even know where to start because I feel like you've accomplished and done so much. And I will say, before I feel like I've only ever kind of casually met you in passing at parties and stuff. Yep. I know you know my friend Ben.
Sure.
And so we've never really chatted, but you are somebody that I think is a really good example of why I even invented this podcast. It's like you're somebody who has a lot of hands, a lot of fingers, or a lot of hands in a lot of pots, as they say.
Yeah.
And you're an artist. And so to me, that's like the definition of somebody that finds the city and thrives here.
Absolutely.
And you're just kind of like a poster child for that. Do you identify with that?
Poster adult. I'm definitely no longer a child. Yeah, I do feel that way. I mean, it really, I grew up in Texas, so I didn't really want to live just a few hours away from home ever. Like I thought that I would move away from Texas and never look back, live as far away around the globe, live as far away as possible. And it just, we came here after some weird travels and sort of sunk into this place. And it was like, a day or two after moving here, I had like 40 new friends straight up. And then, was playing, I've been a drummer my whole life and was playing music next to people who were in their 60s, 70s and 80s. And I was like, this is it. This is as an artist, you can work in the industry of art in better places, LA, New York.
Talk about this all the time,
yeah, but to really just live your life as an artist or a musician or whatever, for me, mainly musician, it instantly opened up to me and has never let me down one single time. Maybe certain times I go if I only lived here, I could do X, Y, and Z, but all that's over.
I know what you mean.
Shadowed.
No. Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. It's like I could go somewhere else and maybe have this other version of a life, but why on earth?
To what end?
Yeah. Why on earth? What? How is that any better than what I got going here?
All those places are way better to visit anyway. Visiting LA is awesome. Visiting New York is awesome.
I fully agree with you. I fully agree with you. I always tell people I actually love LA and New York. I love those places.
Amazing.
Could never live there.
Yeah. And the experiences I've had in those places are so unique and awesome that I don't think, here, playing with 80-year-olds on stage is repeatable. You'll do it through your whole life, and you'll be one of those 80-year-olds on a stage at some point, still playing music and being vital into your old age. But like my first night I was ever in Los Angeles, I hung out with Liza Minnelli all night long. Straight.
So you had an exceptionally
So I was like,
wonderful...
you don't go anywhere from this. This is the end of, like, if I live in LA, this will never happen again. So
one time I went to Vegas and I was there with a touring old reggae band, and so they all wore suits, and they were all poor because they were a touring reggae band.
Sure.
But they had played at like the Hard Rock,
right.
And I had money at the time, and so I wanted to play blackjack. This story just reminds me because you went to LA and had this LA experience. Yeah. I went to Vegas and I played blackjack and was winning and had 5 handsome men in suits behind me the whole time. And I'm playing on the $5 table, you know what I mean? And I remember having a moment just being like,
this is it.
I've done it. Isn't that so funny? And it's funny, people that we're talking about this is because people come to New Orleans and they're like looking for the NOLA. Right. They're constantly looking for, like, they want to have this authentic experience, to the point where a lot of people will force it or fake it, like, or they move here and they force it and fake it. Yeah. And I think that that's another reason why this podcast exists, is to be like, hey, here's all the stuff that's really going on. Yeah. And here's how really to participate in art and music and culture in our city that isn't this, like, almost like a tourist in your own city. Like, some people, a lot of people, just consume and they don't actually contribute. And we need people that just consume, but I think there's a way to do it where you're still in community with what you're consuming. Yeah. So it's so interesting. I just lost my train of thought because I thought about community again, because you're definitely somebody that really values community overall. Yeah.
I mean, I thought because I'd already managed Freedia and stuff by the time we opened Music Box and done other things with Airlift. And I kind of thought at that point, well, I kind of know everybody in town. Like, I've been around for a while. I've been playing drums for years. I've been in multiple bands. Like I know everybody. And then we opened the Music Box and I warned my partner, Delaney, I was like, we're going to run out of people pretty quick, musicians to play in this space because of what I knew of what was going on. Completely wrong. I think I've met 150 more people more artists since opening Music Box in 2016, or the permanent version. And what I've found is that the authentic version of New Orleans is there's all these incredible musicians playing what you came here for as a tourist, like playing trad jazz and all that stuff, which is fucking great. That's also what got me to sort of stick it out here as a drummer. But those same people, Aurora Nealand and so many others, have these rich, broad, deep, creative, intense lives that supersede the trad jazz part of who they are. Yeah. And so we get this like awesome double layer of who people are and what they present to the world. When I met Sun Pi Barnes, I'd seen his name on the Jazz Fest thing forever, and I was just like, oh, this random dude Sun Pi Barnes who plays sort of folky music. And then I find out he's ex-NFL. He was in the Forest Service. He's doing the first like dictionary of the Creole language. Like all these things where that were. It's almost like you don't just know 20 people in New Orleans. 50 people because of all the layers of who they are that they're not sharing with everybody else. And that's the community part people don't get.
I didn't know that you were a drummer.
There you go. Yeah.
Like, most people don't know you as a drummer. Yeah. I know you as, it's so fun to hear that. Yeah. And like, this is the thing my friends tell me. It's like, well, you've done so much. And I've I've had like 28 identities. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like that. And
we're also fluid here, that we're moving constantly, and it's
not your inspiration.
Yeah. So you really do get to know people only at this moment that you get to know them. And then you get to peel the layers back and know them more deeply, as opposed to in other places where who they are and who they've like made themselves publicly is their sole identity.
Yeah, and one of those things is a commodity, and one of them is being in community, I think.
100%. Commodity versus community.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it comes down to. I really think I talk about capitalism so much on this podcast. I mean, honestly.
Yeah, and in my house, believe.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so it does. I feel like, one of the things capitalism has bred is people feeling both incredibly connected and incredibly disconnected. And a lot of that is because people are buying a however you say it, version of a thing. New Orleans is jazz and gumbo. And it's like, this is a jazz musician. It's like, no, that jazz musician is a second line performer and like all these things. Creole has this like history, you know.
Does electronic music.
Yeah, you never friggin' know.
No, you don't really know. And I'm grateful for that because I do like having. I am a multiple identity person, as is betrayed by the fact that I have two names.
Right, exactly.
But I like these different pieces of my life to not necessarily exist in a vacuum, but to know that like I can dip into this one, I can dip into that one. It's okay to like be this one person in one situation and another person in another situation, as long as that's like appropriate,
authentic to yourself.
Yeah, exactly, and to who I am. And you know, there's people who know me. There's people who will never ever in my life know I'm a drummer. You know, period.
I
and
wouldn't
there's people
have.
who will never know I manage Big Freedia. Who,
Yeah.
In the same way, you know, I meet like people who are younger, much younger, and they don't have any clue about any of that stuff. Well, art for me is making friends. Period. Like that's all it is. You know, I'm a outgoing in an outside world, introverted in my house kind of person. So if I'm at home, I'm completely cut off from the outside world, and if I'm out in it, I mean, I can't absorb enough of what people are giving and who they are, and get to know enough people in my lifetime. And art just like greases the wheels, you know. It just makes it real. It makes it easy to do that. Commodity is second to that, which is why I'm still poor. Like after all the work that I've done.
Welcome to my life. I'm right there with you. I'm right there with you.
Yeah.
It's so interesting, but like, I mean, it's real like sad to say it, but it's like, but I'm above it. It's okay. Like I don't need money. I'm so happy. Like, cause I am so rich. I tell this to my partner all the time when we're really struggling. I'm like, we are so rich in so many things that a lot of people are very poor in. And a lot of very wealthy people will never even be rich in at all. You know,
truth.
like love and art and authenticity and like connection and all these things that we're really lucky to be rich in. Yeah. But sometimes it's like, wouldn't it be nice if I could, you know, maybe have a car that had air conditioning?
100 million%.
You know, like that would be nice.
I'm just not having kids. That's my solution to that
problem. It sucks because I want kids, you know? And I'm like, this is BS. I'd be a great parent. Right. But I can't put them in my 900 square foot apartment, you know? Sounds awful. Oh, my God. Yeah. That's so I heard you call yourself something. You know, I research everybody that comes on.
Fair enough.
And I heard you call yourself on something. You called yourself a doula, and you said it really in passing. And I was like, I call myself a doula. What do you think a doula is? Like, what is it to you?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, I'm not necessarily the one always having the baby. You know what I mean? I'm just like shepherding the energy that it takes to get it done. Yeah. And standing there with oven mitts ready to like catch whatever is coming out. Like, yeah. And a lot of times that role sort of does make me feel a little bit behind the scenes, even when I know I'm not. Exactly. You know, but I'm people who I just have learned, like the people who recognize that, and the people who don't, and that's the way that.
And you're probably secure and don't need the validation of the people that don't recognize that.
I like it. You're like, I did a project recently where we took a bunch of New Orleans people to Arkansas, and one of the we got a bunch of like we took like 60 artists to Arkansas for this performance, and we got these comment cards afterwards with like survey questions, and one of the comment cards was like, you know, it's easy to imagine that someone could erroneously believe that Jay or Rusty's like relaxed attitude means that he's like neither paying attention nor cares about the experience of the artist, but that's wrong. You know? And I feel like that is like I'm not a big high energy person, even though I work a lot of hours. Even though I do a lot of things, I get mistaken for that person a lot. Like people think because there's so many little things you can attach to who I am that I do a fuck ton of stuff. And I do a lot more than some other people do, but a lot of it is like, back to the doula thing, I'm really feeding off of the desire to see things exist in other people's expression as much as my own. And like this feeling that I really am not, you're never probably going to hear of my solo record coming out or like some completely independent thing that I've done. I tend to like.
You work well with others.
I like groups. Yeah, I like groups.
I heard being a doula described as once, and I was like, this is what I identify with it. I heard it as, you're not the one having the baby, or whatever. You can be doula to many things. Sure. You're not the one having the baby. You're there to remind the person who's having the baby that they can have the baby. Ooh. You're there to like make them remember that they can do it. Wow. And that's a huge
I'm going to hold on to that. That's really good.
Right? Yeah. And that's why you can have a doula of so many things. There's death doulas now. Right. There's really so many people that are there. And you could call it other things. You could call it mentorship. You could call it just being a leader, like life coach, you know, which it's not, it's all of those things and none of those things.
True.
But I know what you mean. It's like, I'm the same way. Like, I have my hands in a lot of pots, and like I'm able to like exist in these worlds and like help build these worlds up. But at the same time, like I really like, I mean, I think this is very New Orleans of us. I really like chilling. I like chilling and doing nothing.
Yeah.
You
I
know?
tell people that all the time. I mean, I'm fortunate that I remember New Orleans pre-Katrina vividly. When I moved here, it was like 90.
Much different place.
So
Much
unbelievably different.
place.
96, I think, or 95 when I first showed up here. And I worked at Poppy's. I don't know if you remember this place. It was like Clover Girl Sister restaurant across the street from Pat O'Brien's. And I worked the night shift. I made about $180 a night waiting like, 60 seats or whatever.
Good money.
Paid $40 a month in rent.
Hell yeah.
in a house, it was a shitty place, but whatever. Who cares? And I spent all the rest of my time reading books, like just an immense amount of time reading books. And I'm from the Texas and I just watched this movie last night with my partner, which is hilarious because she's much younger than me, 17 years younger than me. So we have, markedly different realities, but both Gulf Coast people. So we both feel similarly about a lot of things. But we were watching Slacker, which is the Richard Linklater film. And that movie, she's about halfway through, Jamie's like, does anyone have a job in this movie? Because it's all just people walking around, just bumping into each other. And I was like, kind of no, it's 91. Like you really didn't have to.
Chilled.
You didn't have to have 10 jobs for starters, but you really didn't have like ridiculous rent. You didn't really. In one of the scenes, somebody has moved out of the house and they're standing in the room like with all this stuff is gone. The guy's gone and nobody knew he even left. And somebody's like, "Can I have this room?" And they're like, "Yeah." And then he just walks out of the house. It's like, okay, well, this sooner or later he'll move in. Like there wasn't all the pressures that we're under now are so different and have changed so much.
Everything's so immediate now.
Yeah, chilling is like such a different thing now.
It's
almost impossible to do, and we have to have things like the Nap Ministry and like all these different sort of awesome. But also, why do we have to have them? Sort of arguments for stopping, for just like taking a pause and just fucking reading a book or whatever.
I think that we've been trained with these like dopamine hits all the time from
guilty.
the internet and from delicious food and everything that gives you a dopamine hit that like. Yeah. We don't know how to not. We're completely addicted, We don't know how to just like stop. And I've been practicing.
I'm guilty of it.
Me too. I mean, first of all, I love the internet. You're a big internet person too. I love the internet, and I always have. I remember in like 2002 having a live journal. Like I loved it, and I was 12. And I loved it then. So I think that there's great aspects to it, but a thing that I'm really coming to terms with lately is that it keeps me from truly relaxing, because it's not relaxation when you stare at your phone. You think you're relaxing, but you're not actually. Your dopamine's going, you're learning. I mean, I read. The other day I was like, I don't really read as much as I used to. And then I was like, oh my God, I read so much.
Hours a day.
Yes, I read hours a day. I love a long caption. I love an article. I love reading on my phone.
Right.
And I'm like, I really don't relax as much as I thought I did, And so
it's different though. It's like reading at a party versus like
it's so true.
Versus like sitting in your bed at home with no other distractions and really absorbing. So I definitely feel that as well. Yeah,
I cleaned off my vanity in my apartment, and like my favorite thing now is to just like stare at myself in my mirror and like pick my skin and like do my facial routine, and I'll just like sit there and look at myself for like 10 or 15 minutes now every day. And I'm like, this is so relaxing to me.
Yeah. Have you ever shut off your Instagram completely or anything?
Never.
Yeah.
Well, because my partner and I have a business, and so I run that.
That's the trick, is when it is your business, which is
and then my styling business is only on Instagram.
Right.
I don't have a website. I don't have anything. I run it all on Instagram.
Yeah.
And I'm addicted.
Yeah.
Like,
most importantly.
And number one, I love the internet. So
I admire anyone who can do it. I feel like at this point, like I'm able to put it. If I stop posting, I find that it helps. But all in all, like the thing I was saying before, like I am an introvert at home, and I live with an introvert who's really good at it and has shown
how to be a good introvert.
Has shown me the way. Yeah, 100 million%. But there is a part of me that's like, this is a social world for me. Like,
me too. Yeah,
I'm quick to dodge out if I post something and people don't like it, or if anyone makes even one comment, I'm just like, take it down, because straight up, because I don't want to have.
It's supposed to be fun.
Yeah, I'm at a. It's like being at a dinner party, and I don't want to have like uncomfortable, shitty conversations at a dinner party. Like,
no.
That's what that space is to me.
Yeah,
it's a public space. So
yeah,
it gives me that sort of release, but it definitely is not like the same unwinding that you're talking about. Like that I think.
It's funny. I was actually thinking I was going to ask you about your relationship with the internet, because you're somebody who you're older than me, just by a little bit.
51.
Yeah, just a little older than me.
Ancient.
But you've been an artist long enough that you didn't have social media.
Oh God, it was great. I mean, when I first moved to New Orleans, nobody had landlines. Ugh. You had to go. Landline, by the way, is a.
Yeah, you should tell them. I do have
young. It's a phone that's attached to the wall. No, people used to, if you wanted to find your friend, you got on your bike and you rode your bike.
You go drive by their house.
They were likely probably trying to find you too, which made it really inconvenient.
Yeah.
But also, we just lived inconvenient lives, it was just the way it was. I'd say the biggest change is in the entertainment and art space, like as an industry for me. That was what really hooked me, unfortunately, on the internet, was because I was like in 5 or 6 bands during MySpace and things like that. And it was just...
What bands were you in?
I don't want to talk about it.
Really? Yeah, Are they all canceled now? Every one of them?
Everybody broke up after Katrina. It was horrible. Yeah, one of them was my partner and me, just a duet, and then there were
Trauma.
Crooks and Nannies was probably the one I liked the most, so I'll mention that one. That was Walt McClemens, who goes by Lonesome Leash now, and there was just tons of
What kind of music?
So 5 different bands. It was everything from kind of dark, swampy, sort of Nick Cave type stuff in a group that was 11 people with strings and the whole thing, and then piano and drums duet with my partner, which was kind of cabaret-ish, but also noisy, high energy.
I just think surely I saw you perform when I was in high school, because I was a little ska punk kid, so I was going to the Big Top and the VFW halls, and I was going to the High Ground in Cyprus. Yeah. And I wasn't going to really cool indie stuff. It was mostly dirty little punks and metal kids, It
was kind of like that.
Yeah, that was my vibe.
We weren't a lot more elevated in some ways.
Okay, cool, great.
Crooks and Nannies was we called it old timey new wave, which was dark, minor key, old timey music.
It still feels more heady than the ska bands I listen to.
Probably a little, slightly elevated.
Slightly, but also I was dating musicians, so I was always going to Voodoo Fest, and when Voodoo Fest was dope. Yeah. Do you remember when Voodoo Fest was very cool?
It was amazing. Yeah, right up through the first one after Katrina, which was really
that was the last
heartfelt kind of experience.
Yeah, that was the last one.
Yeah.
That was good. I agree. I mean, that wasn't the last one I went to though.
Yeah.
I went to them until I graduated high school. I was a sophomore when Katrina hit. So, but Voodoo Fest, for those who don't know, used to be so cool.
Yeah, the name notwithstanding, it's a outstanding.
Truly, but the festival was so cool. It was very indie. It was very scrappy. Yeah, it felt so scrappy, but really authentic. I remember just being 13 and being in the Mushroom booth. The Mushroom, the store on Broadway, would bring their entire store. Right. You could walk through their store in the middle of City Park.
Yeah, we need something back. I mean, Buku just canceled for next year too.
And Voodoo Fest is done, right?
I guess so. Yeah,
I think they broke up too. Buku, Voodoo.
Stephen Rehaj, I guess, sold it to Live Nation, and now it doesn't exist.
Great.
But I know. So we do need something like that. I mean, we do. Something will come along to replace that energy. But
I hope so.
But I don't know.
On such large scale, it's this is the thing that I wonder if you suffer with. It's I have all these ideas, and I'm I don't have the large scale abilities to make these things come true. And sometimes there are things where I can't just get a friend to be hey, you want to make a podcast with me? Sometimes there are these big scoping ideas that I'm hey, I could work on this, and I know it would work, just because I know it would work. Yeah. But I don't have the resources, the knowledge, the people. Right. It's just the people with the money have the money, and they should give it to us.
That's why I'm not very precious about ideas.
Just give them away
all the time.
Me too.
If I have a good idea, I'm please, you do it. If I tell you about it and you seem really excited about it, maybe we'll do it together. Yeah. But maybe you'll just go do it, and I get to go to it.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah.
That's You're I want it to exist.
That's all I really care about.
Yeah, I want the thing to exist. Yeah. So that's exactly how I feel about ideas. Yeah. Unless I have a couple of things that are just right next to my heart that pretty much only I can do. You know what I mean?
That you think you'll do.
Yeah, I think I'll do. But it's how much life do I have to live? I can't possibly do all the things that I really want to do or that come to me that I think are good ideas. Yeah.
It's a double-edged sword because if you had the money to do them, you might do them poorly.
True.
Which I see happening with like
so true.
A lot of like development of neighborhoods and development of things in the city where you're like, oh, you just had the money to do that.
But you don't have the skills.
But you should have really thought about whether or not anyone needed it.
Yeah, if
or
it was worth it.
Yeah.
Market research or whatever.
Yeah, or even just understand your own community. I think a lot of developers sort of live in a bubble outside of the communities that they are developing over. Like they're laying their wealth on top of people who who may have better ideas or may have ideas that could like enrich a developer's concept, but instead they just have the money to be able to do it. And I
think about it all the time.
I try to get in there early with developers. Like I try to talk to them because
I need to know more developers. Developers are just people with money.
Yeah, that's all. That's all.
Like, how do I meet people that have money that want to invest money?
Right.
It's like, I'm a good person to invest with. How do I convince you to do this?
Though?
How old am I?
Yeah. Sorry to be rude. Wait, no, you don't have to answer.
I tell people I'm 29.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah.
And I say I'll be 29 until I'm 50, and then I'll be 30.
Perfect.
But I was in sophomore high school when Katrina hit.
Yeah, I think you live in a slow town, though. You know what I mean? So it just takes a long time to know all those people. But the longer I've lived here, the more it's sunk in, and the more I've met people that I never expected to know, and and I probably never would have met if I like developers at the level that I meet here, or anyone with like money and influence in the level of the people I meet here. I think I only meet them because we live here. If those same people in New York would never they would never even cross my path. That's the plus side of New Orleans is that eventually, like in this tiny little pond, you'll bounce into people with all kinds of crazy influence and stuff.
Well, it's really cool in this city to support artistic endeavors too.
That's true.
It's very trendy, you know?
yeah. And it's you actually can make a mark if you're one of those people and you really want to like make things better for folks. There's some people who do it with like amazing style and really understand the communities they're in, and there's other people who absolutely do
they just punish. We call them punishers.
There you go.
They like just punish us with their presence and like not realizing and taking up too much space and not knowing that they're doing it.
Right. So I'm glad sometimes that I don't just have money, so I can't just do some dumb shit that I want to do.
But you wouldn't. You're smart. You're not going to do anything dumb. What would you do dumb?
Oh, who knows? I mean, who really knows? Like, I'd step in some shit. I mean,
you think so?
That's the thing about living here is that I wake up every day just being like, am I going to step in some shit today? I feel like, because I'm present on the internet, for instance, so like people see what I post, and I'm sure some people are just irritated that I'm there, and then other people, I'm always just like, the world is full of people in this day and age who are out looking for, any kind of like
conflict, they want to like fight, they want to, it's so exhausting.
It really is.
But that's why building true community is really important.
I hope so.
Because, and then this is what I always say on this podcast, is like, I fully plan to mess things up. I get things wrong all of the time.
Fair enough.
Just now I was trying to screw this screw in, and I was like, Carrie, it won't go. And she's like, you got to try the other side. And I was like, oh yeah. There is infinite possibilities of me messing up.
There you go.
And someone else helping me get it right.
True.
And like, the screw is a tiny metaphor, but like if it were something bigger and Carrie was in my community, she could still address me. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And that's what community is about. And the internet does not facilitate true community because it's like you said, it's like I'd rather not fight with anybody on the internet because why?
Yeah.
It's not real, number one.
Truth.
Number two, it doesn't make me feel good. It's not actually making them feel good. You're not actually coming to any sort of resolve. Every conversation I've ever had in person that was conflict has gone 1,000 times better than any conflict I've ever gotten on the internet.
Yeah, yeah. Any troll that I've ever been trolled by on the internet, my response is universally the same. Hey, you want to talk about it? Yeah. And in almost every case, they're like, no. I just want to, I'm like, well, there's more to the story. Well, okay, that's fine. Then, that's not what that space is for. That space is for like
people to vent.
Vent and just win stuff, and like, and own a space or own an energy.
Yeah.
I feel very, very lucky that I've like gotten to be active in this city as much as it can like tear people down and take people apart. Mm-hmm. That I've gotten to be active without, especially as a transplant on top of it. Yeah. Without doing excessive harm, Yeah. But I worry about it all the time.
But the thing is if harm is done, you're somebody who wants to make it right. And that's really all that matters.
Maybe so.
You know? No, I don't want to make it right. Actually, I want to make it worse for you. How do I double down?
Some people maybe.
No, some people for sure.
Just a few. I'll be like, oh, is that making you unhappy?
Great. Okay, we have to take a break.
Let's take a break.
We're taking a break. Hello, it's your host, Mary Jacobs. I'm sitting here with my producer, Carrie Mulder, and we are so excited to be bringing you Planet NOLA this episode and every episode. We really believe in this podcast and the work it's doing in New Orleans to build community, to reach out to people, and we really love what we do.
Yeah, we love our guests, we love our audience, our listeners, we love each other. It's just a big love fest.
So if you love this podcast and you believe in what we're doing, it would mean the world to us if you considered subscribing to our Patreon. We've just launched it. The lowest tier is $5, and we are just really trying to get this podcast to pay for itself a little bit, maybe support ourselves just a little bit more. We're both creative people who have a lot of projects, and this is a big one in our lives, and there is bonus content.
Yeah, it's really fun. It takes a deep dive into the episode, kind of circle back to some of the topics. They've been fun.
Yeah, we basically record with the guests as soon as we're done their episode and do a more candid version of their podcast. It's shorter, but it's more self-effacing, and it feels like just real, you know?
It's BTS, behind the scenes.
It's the BTS. So if you want more Planet NOLA content, you could subscribe to our Patreon and get it. It would mean so much to us. So, okay, we'll let you go back to your episode now, but please consider.
Thank you.
Bye. This episode of Planet NOLA is brought to you by Vitality Community Fitness. Vitality is a functional training gym located in Metairie, Louisiana. And at Vitality, we focus on members as individuals. That's right. We don't lump people together. We don't assume that everybody has the same goals when they step into our gym. We also don't push things like body ideals or diet culture. We try to focus on the full person, and we try to give an experience that matches that. We've got incredible coaches. We've got an incredible community. And if you're looking for a place to call your new gym home, consider checking us out. We offer a 3 free class trial. That's right. Literally no commitment. You can try 3 of our classes in a week to see if our gym is for you, because ultimately we want people who want to be there. And if it sounds like this might be the space for you, please consider checking us out. You can go to vitalitycommunityfitness.com, click the contact button, and get started. Hello and welcome back to Planet NOLA. I'm still here chatting with my good old pal, Rusty Lazer, a.k.a. Jay Pennington, man of many names. We have been talking the entire break in classic Planet NOLA style, so it kind of still feels like you should jump right back in. But we were talking about, you know what, something I really wanted to talk about with you.
Go for it.
How are you a mentor to anybody? And what does that look like for you to be a mentor? And why do you do it? And what's the hard parts about it?
Yeah.
Everything.
That's an interesting question, because I've always kind of wished that I had a mentor. And if I look real closely at some people in my life, I think I do, but I'm also such a kind of go it my way person that I don't know that a lot of people have felt comfortable mentoring me, because I'm doing things that are just so unique to who I am. I think we were saying that before. And so I don't know that I've really gotten to be on the mentee side of a mentor relationship enough to understand how to mentor. So the only thing that I feel like I do is and this informs 90% of what my work is that's not being on a stage performing, period, is try to funnel talent into opportunity, just help people who have immense talents, or who even just care about what they're doing and care about where they are and and who they are, to kind of find avenues of expression for that are either lucrative in some cases, like with Freedia, it was money, and helping her get her feet under her, because she takes care of so many people in her life. For other people, it's just you have this immense skill, you just need to get out there and do some more of it. And people are wonderful and do the same for me, but that's my version of mentorship. Is let me just get you some opportunities, or let me just find you a path that can help you. But I don't know that I have in me a sort of defined notion of mentorship. It just
takes some level of snobbery almost. Right?
It's a little bit like being a life coach or something, which
right.
is,
it feels really
cheesy. It feels a little bit. Yeah, it feels like something in a movie, right?
It does.
The people who are mentors in your life are just people talking to you, but in a movie, they there, thinking back to the guy who just got nominated for an Emmy, who was the sort of mentor character in Euphoria. I can't remember his name now, but he was, you're watching this person really mentor a character in something, and it seems very defined because it's well defined.
Right.
But in reality, we're just talking.
Right.
And so I think I've been a mentor to people just based on life experience and how much I share it and how gabby I am. Mm-hmm. But I think I've been a mentor, but I don't know that I've ever really entered into any kind of relationship that's more formal.
I am your mentor.
It happens. There are people out there in the world who do that with people all the time, and God bless them. It's a real thing.
I get it. It's different when you have a job and there's somebody that you want to get. You want to have their job one day, like the CEO or whatever.
Right. If you're on a path or on a track,
you're on people who have. This is an artist thing, I think. Mentors, because people who have careers, they know who the astronaut is and they know that they want to be one.
Right.
And it's very clear cut what the power dynamic is there.
Truth.
But we don't really have any power dynamics in our lives.
No, I actively avoid them.
All of us, I think we all do that.
Yeah.
Because that's why we're able to make art. That's what makes us artists. One of the many things that makes us artists.
Yeah.
So I hear you. But boy, sometimes I just want one, and sometimes and a lot of times I feel like I am one to people.
You might be my comedy mentor based on our off-camera conversation.
That's true. Yeah, I think I did just convince you to start
you
a comedy
mentored me into comedy
and storytelling career.
Thank you.
I am I will mentor you that all day long because I like I said, and I'll tell this to everybody because I think it's relevant. Yeah. If you feel like you've got a story to tell, you should tell it.
Yeah, and tell it your way, 100%.
Be authentic to yourself. How do you want to tell the story?
Yeah, I have a friend who's a comedian out in LA who's sort of well known, and one of his again kind of mentor figures is Bob Odenkirk, and he said that him and his partner showed up in LA. And they were all set to do the thing, get on TV shows and as writers and just do all the things that you do that are not your specific voice, Yeah. And he says that every day he wakes up grateful that Bob Odenkirk was just do none of that.
Yeah.
Absolutely none of it. His only mentor advice was to absolutely do it all yourself.
Yeah.
With your own voice, figure out how far you can take that and stick with it. And and that is maybe
good advice.
Maybe the only thing a mentor can really tell you if they see talent in what you're doing, or if they see that you already have. Maybe if you have no drive, a mentor can give you drive, right? Yeah. But if you have an internal sort of energy towards to do the things you're doing, right?
I know you can do the thing. I'm just here to tell you should do the thing.
You should do the thing,
and you can do the thing.
Yeah, yeah.
It's the same exact thing. It's very doula-y.
Yeah. That's
you're
a blessing.
You're a doula mentor.
Truth.
Mentor
there you go.
Doula.
Yeah, I might be offending some people who, when I say I don't feel like I've ever had a mentor, but I think it's just an internal thing.
I know what you mean. I know what you mean.
Because everybody's got some advice that's helpful.
Exactly.
Which 4-year-olds have good advice that's helpful. True. But I've always also been when I was 15, 16 years old in high school, my friends were all 40. So I've never.
Mine weren't that old, but I was the kid that had older friends.
So maybe they were all mentoring me and I had no idea.
Yeah, you didn't even know it.
Yeah.
It's real. Yeah. It's real. I also ask because I've just been thinking about it a lot for myself. And also I think it's actually a really beautiful and important thing that a tradition we don't really think of anymore and we don't talk about anymore. I think it's the
people who do are doing it in a very
cheesy way.
Yeah, or I have one friend who's a mentor and he's extremely good at it and he's extremely successful. So it makes sense that he would turn that energy back around and do something good with it. Right. So they're out there, but he's in spaces that I can't even imagine going into as an artist where it's I think there's artists who are bound to make stuff, and I mean bound. You have an inevitability in you that you have to make things, and then there's people who really need to be drawn into what they're doing or who they are, and he's that guy. He's looking for the untapped. People who don't know who they are and who don't know where to go. And I think mentorship, it's maybe its strongest suit. If the reason why you and I probably don't feel like we get a lot of mentorship is we aren't unformed, we aren't lost.
We know.
Yeah, we just don't have the immediate physical resources we need, and that's a different kind of thing. That's not a mentorship. That's give me these resources, damn it.
Give me that money.
Give me that money or whatever. There's nothing I love more than someone who just likes to write checks, just they don't want to get involved.
I'm still waiting.
I learned a lot about it at running Music Box. That was my first nonprofit. Airlift was the first nonprofit I ever ran, and that was like the first time I ever brushed up against, because being a commercial musician, there's no patrons really, not in that sense. It was like first time I ever like brushed up against this world where you have to go looking for resources from resourced humans,
right? Yeah.
And I still don't feel like I fully understand how to do that.
I feel like it's very political.
And
I don't do all of that kind of stuff.
It's cultural too, and I'm from a very broke ass group of people,
and I don't understand the nuance of it at all. I don't understand the nuance of it at all because I'm very matter of fact. I'm like, I don't want to do all this like tiptoe. I don't know how to do it. I just socially don't know how to do it.
I feel like everything that I've learned of that is the first stuff. Upon leaving Airlift is the first stuff I want to let go of. It's the first thing I want to unlearn is everything it took to like. Because there are super rich people in the city that I really love and just like hang out with, and I think they're great people, and I'm so proud of like their ability to recognize the city for what it is and support it.
Yeah.
They are patrons, but they become friends, and then there's people who they're patrons. That's first and foremost, and you have to have a sort of formal relationship with them.
Right.
And I just have never really mastered that.
I struggle with that kind of stuff. We had a meeting at our gym last week, and I was like, because my partner and I are a couple, and we also co-own a business.
Yeah.
And it's like I told our whole membership, I was like, sometimes we're gonna be a couple in here.
Yeah.
Like I am working on being professional, but I told everybody, I was like, ultimately, I don't really want to be a professional person. It doesn't feel good to me to be professional because for me it means I have to be kind of like inauthentic and like not PC, but like buttoned up a little bit, and I don't. That is so deeply uncomfortable. It's so hard for me to do that.
Yeah.
So I just straight up told her, but I'm like, sometimes you might see us like bicker, and like I'm really sorry.
Yeah.
All you can do is trust that we love each other. Like we're gonna get married. Like we're good, you know. And I'm telling y'all that so y'all can feel good about it.
Yeah, I mean we're lucky that it's New Orleans where people are more inclined to accept your reality, like who you are as a human. Like I deal with Again, back to the Airlift thing, but I deal with a lot of, different kinds of people across that space. And some of them are these like very proper people who have a lot of like, a lot of ideas about what the right way to communicate is or whatever it is. And we have definitely dropped the ball for those people a few times. And some of them I'm sure have walked away quietly and never like looked back,
right.
Never really understood us or wanted to engage us because of it. But there is a limit, I mean, I there's a limit to how much that kind of like, how much arguing in the service of like what you're passionate about is really worth it. Same with your relationship, same with whatever else, like I live with with a conflict averse person.
Yeah.
And like
I love conflict. Ooh, give it
to an extreme degree.
Eat it up. I love a fight.
I've taken every lesson I can from her at just not.
Yeah.
Not. Just I'm not.
Yeah, I won't. Oh,
I won't.
God, I love it.
Yeah.
My friend, the Ben that our friendship is just based on us fighting.
Oh, good.
Like I started working for him on his film. We became immediate friends, and we would go out with the whole crew, and we would just sit next to each other. Everybody's partying.
He loves to argue.
We would sit next to each other. The whole cast is partying. It's our only night off of the filming week, and we're just screaming, arguing at each other. And everyone else in the crew is like, why are you two doing this? And it's like, we are best friends. Like, we love to argue.
Wow.
We argue so much about so many things. I want him on the podcast so badly.
You haven't done that yet?
Yeah, it's weird when it's like your best friend,
No,
like,
do it immediately.
I know. Yeah. And my partner too, like she definitely needs to come on the podcast.
Yeah, and you.
Incredibly. Yeah, definitely. I mean, but it's different when it's like, I don't know. It's going to be weird to like put a mic in front of
We'll watch you argue. Don't worry. Like,
yes.
Go ahead. Just get in there.
Let's fight.
Yeah. Get in there.
But yeah, so one day he'll be on here, but I love arguing. But I understand that this passivity and this conflict avoidance thing is actually what people consider professional, and like
that is what professionalism looks like.
And like that's why I'm really bad at it.
Yeah,
that's why I've never been able to work for anybody,
Yeah, you go home and explode instead. Which
to your partner and like unload on them, and you're miserable and you drink a lot or whatever. Like it's like I don't want to do that.
Yeah. You don't want to subsume that. Just get it out.
And surely there are people that do the regular 9-to-5 dull that this isn't their problem. They're like, no, my job is great. Like I show up. I was just talking to a friend who quit a kind of a more fast-paced, stressful, artistic endeavor, but like in the corporate way,
right,
to just work at a retail shop.
right.
And she was just like, I have working hours. I know what they are.
Right.
There's a really clear hierarchy of who's above me.
Yep.
Like, I know who my boss is. Like, I get a commission when I do well.
Yep.
Like, she's like, it's just there for me, and it's like none of this other feeling, you know?
I know this. Like, I mean, there's a part of me that leaving Airlift was a very hard choice, like extremely hard choice. It's something that I created with my partner, but I mean, it was, born after Katrina, so it's like tied up in a lot of emotions to me.
Right.
And 14 years of working on the Airlift is, by the way, the nonprofit thing that runs Music Box Village.
Right.
And when I left, I've said to myself, like, oh my God, I may have to like work in a coffee shop or wait tables again, which are things like I haven't put in a job application since I was probably 20 years old. And I'm 51. So 30 years of not even thinking about this. I don't even know if I did it at 20. I don't even remember ever getting a job through an application in my life. And so there's a part of me that's like, oh, I might have to go back to these things. And then a deep feeling of like, well, who gives a shit? Like, it'll be so good if I do have to like take a job like that. I mean, I love following my pursuits, and the bigger ones they take up your entire life. There is no getting, when I worked for Freedia, it was 16 to 20 hours a day.
Right.
Period. And working for Airlift wasn't much different. Like once we got a home, it became something very similar. But there is a deep sense of comfort. Like, I miss working in coffee shops. I just miss the ease of it. I
loved it.
I miss the quick conversations, and and in this town, I worked
in my heart.
Yeah, I worked at Zots when it was 24 hours, so I miss like the weirdness of that space and the weirdness of being in the quarter or like in the
so much
triangle.
time at Zots in high school. That was like our
the one in the triangle or the one?
No, the one on Magazine.
On Magazine.
I mean on Oak.
Oak Uptown. Yeah. My friends started that, and the downtown one was designed specifically to be this 24-hour salon, like a conversation, like an ongoing conversation. Right. And they really succeeded at that. There's friends that I have to this day, the guy who does all my tattoos, Paulie, I met him when he was like 15, like hanging out.
I have a tattoo from Paulie.
Yeah, I met him when I was 15 years old, going to Noka, but he would come hang out there because his dad was a firefighter, was working like 12-hour, 24-hour shifts and stuff, and nobody's really home, so he was just hanging out at Zots for days, and
That's what's up.
It was I do miss that kind of, maybe if there was a Zots here, like a 24-hour place, maybe I'd consider going back into that world. But there is like just the feeling of like, oh, I don't have to fucking do anything. I don't have to like plan anything. I don't have to be responsible for anything. There are days I really love the size and scope of my life, and then there's days when I just miss like working that job at Poppy's and going home and reading books for 12 hours.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know which one is ultimately more satisfying, and I don't think that I'm going to get a choice in my life between one or the other. I think I
feel like you can have a balance of them. Like, there's a way to have that in balance,
Yeah, mostly it's just taking back time for myself.
Exactly.
And just keeping that to myself.
Well, it's like we were saying earlier, it's like scrolling my phone is not relaxation.
Not at all.
I need to find the thing that relaxes me, and for me, that's staring in the mirror at 10 minutes looking at my face.
Yeah. And for me, in a big way, it's the post-show feeling, like playing music. I keep wanting to quit DJing, and I kind of did for the COVID time. An easy thing to do during COVID is quit your performance job. But there's something that keeps drawing back to it, and I think it's literally the feeling of post-show like drain, which is a real beautiful, quiet, empty space for me where I'm not like considering anything else. I'm not even one of those people who really like choose on what just happened. I do a lot of performances with people, and they love to like eat it up afterwards, and I'm just like, I'm done. I'm empty. It feels great. And that's what probably keeps me performing more than the feeling of being on stage in some ways. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, I know the feeling you're talking about.
It's a good feeling.
I go between two things. I either need that decompression and just to talk with somebody about it, or I need to completely decompress alone and just be silent, and like that feeling of just being like, yes.
Yeah.
All the energy leaves my body. When I step off stage, it's like I could fall asleep like on the floor next to it. It's a crazy feeling. Yeah. And depending on how I feel like the show went, depends on if I want to talk or if I don't want to talk, what I want to talk about. Like, it's so interesting.
Yeah.
I feel like you're lucky because you probably don't have shows where you're like, oh, I had a bad show. I'm on stage making things up, so sometimes I really.
Yeah, plenty of times.
What? Okay,
I think it's unavoidable.
As a DJ?
Yeah, definitely as a DJ.
Okay, tell me how you feel like you've had a bad at the end of a DJ set. You're like, that was a bad DJ set. Why?
Oh man,
I need to understand.
Always, it's it's only because DJing in especially in this city is because I tour, so like I see what other DJs are doing in other places, and I've gone to DJed at so many parties where people are just standing around or people don't seem to really care that there's a DJ or whatever. And because I live in New Orleans, can't even imagine what that is.
Yeah.
Like the whole notion that I do some brunch gigs now at like Ace Hotel and stuff.
Okay.
At Virgin and Ace. And I'm like blown away by the joy I'm finding in not having to create a dance floor, that's the failure. Because in New Orleans, and I've said this to a lot of people, so if, for those who've heard me say this before, to me, it's like being a DJ in New Orleans where people love to dance as much as they do, it carries like in some ways more weight than it should. Like you really have an intense obligation to meet people where they are, to play the stuff that they like, which is in a room full of people random.
Yeah,
like
you don't know them.
You don't fucking know what people really like, or they determine what you are and then they want you to play that over and over again. That's another way of doing it. But I think of it like, your job here, specifically in New Orleans, is really like therapeutic. You have to provide like this massive release for people. And it's, I would say, more intense than being a therapist, because you can go to your therapist and walk away miserable. You can pay like somebody $200 to sit with them for an hour and leave and be super depressed. Yeah. And you can't do that at my shows. Like if you come and you don't have the time of your life and really like cut loose as much as you possibly can and go home as tired as I do, then I failed. And there are many times, like if Jamie was here, she would laugh at this conversation, because every time I walk out the door to go do a gig, I'm miserable. I'm like, I'm going to fuck it up. There's no chance in hell anyone's going to like this. Like there's so many other DJs that are better than me and who really know what people really want to hear now. And like everything's changing all the time anyway. I have all these like 1,000 like voices that just go on. And then I come home every time. She's like, how'd it go? I'm like, great. It was great. I had a great time. And it mostly works out. But then, like the reason why I kind of quit DJing in like slightly before COVID was as much as possible was that I just really, I had like lost Nikki to be in 2020, in 2014. And that shit broke me. Like it broke me in the deepest possible way. And I never saw it coming. Like I don't have a lot. I don't have brothers and sisters, so I don't have a lot of people who like I really have to care for. I don't have like a lot of nieces. I'm not close to my family in that way. And losing him was so intense that I just got sad. And for many, many years I liked sad music because it reflected where I was at. And I would go to these DJs and it was still and I'm like, wah, like crying.
Rusty Lazer ain't what he used to be.
That's what it felt like to me. And then people are so kind and they love to tell you things like that. Like, oh, well, you should be playing this song, or you should be playing this music, or you seem to have like fallen off, or like, all these things happen in the DJ world because there's a not really before there was a bunch of DJs, but when there weren't as many DJs, it was fine. You could just play whatever you wanted and people were happy you did. Then now that there's a bunch of DJs, there's a bunch of perspectives that are really specific on what a dance party is, And so there's these really niche versions of what a dance party is, which is fucking awesome. Like I'm glad that people who want, for instance, house music, there was not that much of it when I started DJing in 2006. There just wasn't.
Right.
And I mean, there wasn't anything in post-Katrina New Orleans, period. Yeah. So just playing music was all I needed to do, and I could play anything I wanted, and everybody was just happy that there was something fun to engage with. And as time went on, like other kinds of music sprung up and became more like relevant than what I was like playing, and people literally would come to me. One guy dropped a friend of mine dropped a like a thumb drive on me with like 3 gigs of music he thought I should be playing, and I was just like, there's an unlimited amount of music in the world. There is absolutely no way I can play it all. And it was
punched him out.
I mean, eventually we just don't communicate much anymore.
Yeah,
but it was one of those things where I was really like kind of crushed by it. It really like really diminished my trust and my choices, and like and you can see like how things change over time. So there, you know, I will say the only time I've had like absolutely zero question about every fucking show being perfect was with Big Freedia. That everywhere we went.
That's the best feeling.
We went to like everywhere we went, people would be like, "Oh, well, nobody really dances here, and I'm really sorry about that." And like, I'm glad you guys came. The promoters would be like, "Glad you're here, but it's gonna be boring. Sorry, you know, like we don't do that." And then I would just be kind of like, you know, like. Just that deep knowing where you're like, it's okay. Like, don't worry. It's going to be fine.
Yeah.
And then, you know, Big Freedia would literally just off stage just say, you know, like, what's up, Bloomington? And everyone in the room goes, you know, like everyone explodes. That was every single time. It was except for like maybe once we played like a dubstep festival.
Oh my God.
And the stage was packed in front of us and we went on stage and the entire crowd left. It was a festival, so they just went away. It was maybe 5 or 6 people up front who knew who we were the only people left out of 1,000 people or something, just disappeared. And that was, but I was with Freedia, who doesn't give a shit. Like she has so much confidence and strength that it made it worth it. That and the time that Snoop Dogg's fans threw shit at us for like 20 minutes straight. But
what?
Yeah.
Why?
We were we were at this festival called Bomb Fest, which was this guy, sweetest dude in the world, created it with his grandfather, this kid created vitamin water. Like, I don't know how to explain this. He's from Connecticut.
Okay.
They're in like, you know, some Connecticut town. I can't remember which one.
Vitamin water air.
And yeah, he's the guy. The kid created it. And
That's crazy.
yeah, and he's young. He was like 20 or young 20s, and he created this festival called Bomb Fest, and like he booked us. We didn't know anything about the festival, but he was like, Big Freedia. He came backstage and he's like, Big Freedia is the best thing I've ever seen in my life. I go to New Orleans. I love Big Freedia. This is the coolest shit. I'm so glad y'all are here. This is so touching. So I'm putting you on in the 20 minutes between Coheed and Cambria and Snoop Dogg, and which just seemed weird in every possible way.
The 20 minutes between.
It was the headliners, you know, so he was just like, I'm going to put you on right between them because that's during this basically what would be a sound check or set check, you know. He's like, we'll put you to the side.
He's like, I love you, so I'm going to give you this favor.
The biggest crowd that we have, right?
Yeah.
And so we go on stage and he went out beforehand and was like, hi, everybody. It was so sweet. And he was just like, hi, everyone. This is my favorite thing in the world. And if you ever go to New Orleans, like, this is the real New Orleans. This is, I don't care what you've seen. Like, I don't care what you think. This is absolutely the realest thing from New Orleans. You're going to love it. It's my favorite thing. None of those people must have liked that guy because they turned on us immediately. And I was with like very, you know, it was like the dancers that we had at the time were very, very queer and like, you know, super outgoing queer personalities, you know?
Right.
And so they had like this very like non-gendered vibe, and it was like, it was just, or I don't know how to say that properly, but you know, like,
androgynous
vibe, you know, it was just like mixed and crazy, but very, very, very queer. And they just started throwing shit at us immediately. Bottles, fucking anything and everything that they had.
They were about to see Snoop Dogg.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. And fortunately, I was with that group of people because, like, it was fun. We had a blast. We didn't throw anything back because I was in the background DJing, and I was like, nobody throw anything back because that'll be the thing that we get in trouble for.
Right.
So nobody threw anything back, but Freedia was, like, pretending to suck dick on the microphone and, like, pointing at people and, like, going, you know, like in the crowd. Like, she didn't fall for it at all. And we had the time of our lives. We walked off stage laughing, like cackling.
Yeah,
you know?
what an insane time.
It was perfect. Then we went out on the street in this little town. I can't remember what it was. We went out on the street afterwards, and there was like, it was a college town, so people were out, and people came up to us one after another, and it reminded me of like, whatever you think of a moment is not important, because all these people were like, I was in the back. Y'all were fucking amazing.
Yeah.
Fuck those idiots. They couldn't hear them. They couldn't really see what was happening. They just knew that there was a weird energy.
Yeah.
But I'm just glad, you know, like with Freedia, you don't leave. You don't you don't run away from a situation like that. You like eat it.
Yeah.
And so that's why I probably have more like an appearance of confidence about performing and stuff. But in my heart, I'm the worst, especially DJing in front of an audience. Like anytime it's just me and I'm DJing, I opened for Africa Bombada in New York, which is very weird because I'm not a vinyl DJ, you know, like that's you should get a legend to open up for a legend. You know, I was just some dude at Webster Hall and nobody knew who I was. And they put all these fucking lights on me and I'm like, really.
You're like, I DJ parties.
Yeah, I was like, I don't have this kind of energy, you know. Like, I don't know how to like massage you, you know. Yeah. And it was fine, it was whatever. But I go on stage and I'm like, turn all the lights off. Just turn the lights off. I'll be fine. I'm gonna hide over here. Yeah. But yeah, that was a long-winded way of saying.
Oh, it was great. I loved every minute of
it. That I feel like I'm gonna fail constantly, and I'm always surprised if I don't. Constantly surprised if I don't. Pleasantly, but yeah, I have zero confidence.
It's so funny because I am both incredibly confident and very the same. Like, I do this thing where I style people in clothes, secondhand clothes, and when they come, it's like a private shopping experience. Yeah. You can ask Kristen. Every client I've ever had, they were gonna leave hating me.
Oh yeah, you're convinced.
I was every single client, and Kristen is exhausted by it because it's the same every time. I'm and inevitably I say I'm not gonna do it, and every single client I look at their rack right before they get here, and I'm like, well, I failed than someone else today, you know. And every time people like look me in the eyes at the end, and they're like, "This has been incredible. Like, nice. Truly, thank you."
That's what's up.
Yeah, and then I still don't believe it. So I hear you. Yeah. I hear you, and so we're winding down.
Okay.
Can you believe it?
Yeah, it was great.
I mean, I can't believe it. I want to talk forever.
We'll just have to talk.
We're going to record a bonus episode also. We should also be friends and talk on our own.
Love it.
Number 2, we're going to record a bonus episode. So if people are eating this conversation up as much as we are right now, I think you're going to stick around and record with us so they'll get to hear more of it. So please go be a Patreon subscriber. We currently have 5 subscribers and one is a blood relative of mine. So we would love to have you over at Patreon. So I asked the same last question to everybody. Oh, I'll ask you the $1 million question. If you had an unlimited budget in New Orleans, what's something you would invest in right now?
One I can't say because I'm trying to do it.
Yeah, you're working on it.
Yeah. God, this.
And it's going to be one project.
It's not even creative. It's like literally just like a therapist on every corner. Do you know the sort of the in the Peanuts comic, you know, like the little psychiatrist 5 cents or whatever? Yeah. So Lucy on every corner.
Yeah.
And this was a post-Katrina dream that I really wished had actually been able to happen at post-Katrina, but just like free mental health.
Absolutely.
Period. End of story. It's the only thing that I think is really fundamentally crippling the immense amounts of like beauty and joy and talent. I mean, I know we get it through, again, back to my therapy, dance and as therapy thing. We get it through second lines and we get it through all these cultural things. We do get our therapy one way or another.
Absolutely.
But
they're therapeutic though. They're not quite therapy.
But to just get in and like let people digest. I have so many friends who are really young and like and older, but I mean, really, especially went through Katrina at really tender ages and stuff, who I just need more than anything in the world. They just need to explain themselves in a non-judgmental space and know that, and just know internally that that's not, that whatever they had to do to get to where they are doesn't change much about like how beautiful they are and like what their contributions could be.
Everyone deserves that. Everyone deserves that. I totally agree. That's such a good mission.
Yeah.
And I hear I support you.
Thank you.
And then our final question, I think you know, is who's somebody you think should be on the podcast? And you've sent me so many suggestions.
I have, yeah.
So, and I've reached out to some of them.
Good.
And so you've sent me some are on my list of still to reach out to.
Yeah.
But who do you want to say right now?
You know, I'm so wrapped up in the bounce world and the people that most like blow my mind in that world are behind the scenes or on the stage, but to the left or the side, you know?
Yeah.
So like there's so many people in management and other aspects of bounce that have really like held that thing together. It's, you know, I mean, I probably honestly the first person would be Nikki B's mom.
Yeah.
Nicole. Yeah. She's such a fascinating person and so brutally honest with who she is. The first time I ever talked to Nicole, she just said, "Mr. Rusty, I'm a thug." She said, "I'm a thug. I've been a thug my whole life. That's who I am. That's who you're dealing with." You know, and she was like, "But I'm gonna work with you and I'm gonna get to know you. And she was so protective of Nikki, like so deeply protective, and really wanted him to be a different kind of person entirely than he was. And but loved him so much through who he became. Yeah. And just, you know, I mean, it's a weird one because again, like not a known factor, not a known entity. You know,
but that's the thing is that everybody is relevant to what I'm trying to do here.
Yeah.
Because what I'm trying to do here is build community. And when you talk to real life people, that's how you do it.
Truth.
The idea is that anyone watching or listening can see themselves reflect back in some way or another. And that's like what community building is. You understand somebody more deeply. You are endeared to them.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, oh yeah. This has been so good.
That was great.
Did you have fun?
Yeah, I had a blast.
Okay, well, this has been Planet NOLA, y'all. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm Mary Jacobs. This has been Rusty Lazer, among many other names. Y'all be in touch. Thank you again to this episode's guest. Planet NOLA is produced by Carrie Mulder and Mary Jacobs. If you liked what you heard here, please consider subscribing to us on YouTube or all your social media platforms and pretty much anywhere you get podcasts. Also, if you really, really liked this episode, think about subscribing to our Patreon where we have tons of bonus content from this episode and more. Starts at just $5 a month and it would mean the world to us. Thanks so much, y'all, and be in touch.